The Redmi Note 10 Pro is a Note 10, which is a Pro. So here's my Pro review on it. And by the end of this video, you will know why I call this review a Pro review. Hey everyone, Mukul here, and again back with a phone review just because someone close was able to buy it and I had ample fun with it for about 2 weeks. The phone looks amazingly beautiful in this color. Even in this budget category, Redmi has made a phone which looks and feels premium. I mean, that's surely something worth mentioning. The back matte finish surely looks as good as my OnePlus 8, and even though it can get some smudges on it, this finish is something which I cannot ever live without now. The gradient colors are pleasing and I feel this color turned out to be great. This is Gorilla Glass 5 by the way, and the same Gorilla is there on the front too. The frame in the middle is plastic, but I really don't think that should be considered negative here. The front has a centered punch hole camera which doesn't really punch, it just takes pictures. The phone feels great in hand, but it surely is a huge phone. Would not say it feels as bulky or as heavy as a Poco X2, but that massive screen size of course has its own natural obvious weight. There are many holes on the phone, but the best hole is this 3.5mm jack. The satisfaction. I'm not against Bluetooth earphones and stuff, but having this on the phone is quite handy and good to see companies like MI, Asus and even Moto still putting them on their phones. You guys are the real MVP. The SIM tray has 3 dedicated slots. I mean, really nothing's wrong so far with the phone. The camera bump is quite prominent and thick on this boy. I mean, it's so thick that even the design of this camera layout looks shocked in a what the f moment. So if you are someone who keeps dropping their phones and stuff, then an armored case would be a good idea. Talking about armor cases, the case which comes in the box is nice overall with a mattish back texture, but even without a cover the phone felt quite grippy. The supplied charger at 33 watts is quite smaller and lighter than the Poco X2's charger, which runs at the same wattage. Setting up the phone was simple, but MIUI being MIUI, you won't be able to avoid the bloatware on the phone. I mean, it kinda sucks that you can't remove the many useless apps which come pre-installed in the phone, but I guess that's the price of paying so less for a phone which is so feature rich. Even when I tried to avoid signing in to my MIUI cloud account, it somehow guessed it through the Google login and signed in automatically, and then laughed at me. I immediately set the screen to 120Hz when the phone started, and the experience was good and like any other 120Hz screen. The phone ran pretty smooth and I didn't really see it behave strangely during my usage. As I used the phone more and more, I felt the screen to be pretty darn good. The brightness felt ample both indoors and outdoors. So I thought, why not compare it directly against my OnePlus 8 screen, and god damn, it beats it easily. The colors, vibrance, brightness and contrast, everything was just better on the Note 10 Pro's display. Clearly an epic win by Xiaomi here. The stereo speaker didn't feel as rich or loud as the OnePlus 8 speaker, but I would say they aren't bad for the price. I mean, getting stereo speakers in this price segment is good enough, so I am not complaining. But they can easily get muffled if covered by hands though, so make sure you learn the art of making phones levitate once you are watching any sort of media on it. The call quality through the earpiece was decent and clear, and I had no trouble listening to what the other person was saying till I positioned the earpiece correctly on my ear. It is decently loud and the stereo speakers work fine for the calls too. Not too loud, but just fine. There has been quite a buzz about the poor proximity sensor behavior of this phone, but I really didn't face much of it. I mean, this might have been improved after the several updates, but really who knows. Both the face unlock and fingerprint unlock worked really fast. I mean, you can either choose one of them, but I personally always prefer physical sensors to unlock stuff wherever I can. I really don't want to get into more details about it, but I have always found physical fingerprint sensors to work more effortlessly. After using the OnePlus 8 for a long time now, I really dislike its on-screen fingerprint sensor with a big bleh. The overall performance of the phone has been quite smooth and fluid because it's a fairly new phone. But yeah, MI is infamous for ruining its phones with heavier and heavier major updates. But you can really save your phones by hard resetting them after each major upgrade, but not after every security patch or the same Android version upgrade you get on the phone. So yeah, there's your pro tip. And the camera performs fairly well too. I like most of the primary sensor shots and the macro shots from this phone when there is ample light around. The color balance from the primary sensor and the ultra-wide sensor varies like a madman. The sensor does a good job capturing faces, but if you are a pixel peeper, you will notice the over-sharpening it does. But the dynamic range was managed quite satisfactorily. But on the portrait mode, it fails to find the sun just after a few seconds, which shows it doesn't care about anything but the face. And I guess that's why it's called the portrait mode. The front camera takes decent pictures in decent light, but it does have over-sharpening. I love most of the macro shots the phone takes, and unless you pixel peep, you'd also be very happy with the performance. I mean, to be honest, some shots were really surprising. And the macro mode also worked for the videos. And the video department does a decent job and captures decent details, but with steady mode on, the stabilization works great, but sacrifices a lot of details and lesser light through the sensor. But most of the videos recorded behaved rather disappointingly in terms of dynamic range. The exposure correction from the front camera behaved quite rapidly, but I would say the details capture were fine, and the stabilization were decent too, considering it has no optical stabilization sensor on any of the sensors throughout the phone. This is how the video quality is from the front camera at 1080p, 30 fps. Where's the freaking camera? And when I tested the phone at night, well, the primary sensor performed fairly well too. It's hard to differentiate between the normal and the night mode though, and most of the images turn out slightly blurry, but I would say it does a decent job of capturing decent photos which are quite well lit, but by the end of the long processing it takes. Other general human pictures came out slightly blurred, even after I tried my best to keep my hand still. The front camera takes average pictures in low light and a terrible portrait picture, so yeah, don't attempt that. Well, unless you like soft, gooey stuff. The ultra-wide does a poor job in low-lit scenarios though. The video from the rear camera is fine, but with steady mode turned on, the video processing has these jelly artifacts all over them for free. And the front camera video lacked major details, but the amount of light capture was again decent. I mean, this was a very dark scene, but the color tone on these samples were way off, and they were towards too much green for some reason. The slow-mo does a decent job overall and doesn't look fake, which I had experience with some previous MI phones, and to be honest, from many other brands too. So yeah, this time I would say this is a fine slow job, guys. And to my surprise, you can also record slow-mos from the front of the camera too. So yeah, pretty feature-rich camera with all sorts of nitty-gritty features on it. I wouldn't say it's really good, but I really can't say it's bad too. It's kind of a mixed bag overall. Now, as the phone has a massive battery, the 33-watt charger took about 1 hour 15 minutes to charge from 2% to 90%, but damn, the phone has insane battery performance. MIUI tends to kill many apps from the background unless you check the run in background options. So when you factor that with the insane amount of battery inside the phone, you get a screen on time of almost 8 hours in full usage. And this is frigging amazing. I mean, something like this makes you forget how dreadful the MIUI OS is. I mean, getting this kind of a battery performance from a phone which is easily half of the price of many flagships, and even 1/3 of many flagships, and even 1/4 and even 1/5. Yeah man, flagships are crazily priced in the world right now. So yeah, my point was that this is simply crazy. The haptic feedback from the phone sucks, and sucks heavily. I mean, they couldn't have put a worse motor inside of a phone, and they did it. The vibration coming out of the body makes the phone feel cheap, very cheap. But this is the only factor where the phone would feel cheap overall. The beautiful 3.5mm jack does a good job. I'm not an audiophile, but the sound quality was similar to what I usually get from my PC. The phone supports Wideband L1 and YouTube 2 runs at 4K. The signal strength was as good as my OnePlus 8 with a Geo SIM in it. Now, many of you love MIUI 2 for some reason. So here are some of the goods and bads about it. I mean, I can definitely not stress much that I really loved all the bloatware the phone came with. I could not have been much grateful to Redmi for having put them there, and especially those apps which I couldn't uninstall. I mean, what more could you ask for in the year 2021, right? But yeah, maybe they somehow steal our data with these different apps, or maybe there is some other reason which we puny humans might not ever know about. The phone does come with always on display, which can stay for a maximum of 10 seconds, so not really always on display, but it sounds cool, so yeah. But nice to see it here nonetheless. If you are a lazy bummer who doesn't even like changing wallpapers regularly, then I mean, why did you even buy this phone? But now when you have bought it, these ever-changing lock screen wallpaper feature is something which is nice and needs zero effort once you turn it on based on your interests. The phone by default uses MI's own keyboard, which I truly hate, as I am someone who can never let go of Gboard. So to change that, I had to search for keyboard setting in settings, and then from there only I could select Gboard as my primary keyboard. I've always loved double tap to wake up screen or to shut it off, but for some reason or some sort of bug, it failed to shut off the screen here. Good work. The floating windows behaved like soft floating stuff, so yeah, it worked gracefully. There are a bunch of nice notification edge lighting features too. What I also liked was the many notifications and control center settings, and the new control center style was also good, with which you can open up your notification from swiping down on the left area on the screen, and swiping right will open the main control functions like Wi-Fi, GPS, brightness control, etc., which are in a nice layout. The theme store is filled with many free themes, which is nice and good and whatnot. I remember trying any sort of theme store first on an MI phone many years back, so good to see it's still surviving. And for you private people, they have introduced a privacy protection password feature, which will ask for a password when your private stuff is accessed via any of the apps. And with all of this, MIUI also makes sure to share app permissions and lists the other app permissions which the app may have taken in a separate categories. The different battery saver modes were very thorough and clear with their on-screen instructions, and I really can't dislike this part. MIUI is truly feature rich, and maybe this is why it will never feel as light or smooth as a stock Android phone, so weigh your options. You can also really tone the color of your display, but the auto one works good too, so I didn't feel like playing much with this. Now just wrapping up and quickly talking about the special features. The Game Turbo option will boost the performance for installed games. Floating windows is obviously for floating windows and for its short tutorial. Second Space will create an alternate version of your home screen and app drawer, and you can customize it totally different to the primary screen. Hence the word Second Space, I guess. Light mode is a light version of MIUI which hides many of the detailed features of the skin and makes the icons huge as in size for ease of use and less distraction. Damn, that was a long review, but I have no regrets as this was a phone review on my channel after a frigging long time. So I hope you enjoyed it. But to be honest, that's not the only reason why this review is so long. The Redmi Note 10 Pro is actually a feature rich in terms of both hardware and software that this detailed review had to be very detailed, obviously. So if someone is already accustomed to MIUI, I would have no problems recommending this phone to them blindly. But even if you are someone who is not so much used to MIUI and really aren't a stock Android user fanatic too, then also I can recommend you this phone wholeheartedly because of the price. But if you're someone who hates MIUI to its core, but you are still watching this video, then you probably know how to root and flash custom ROMs on the phone. I mean, definitely for this price segment, Redmi has put all the essential features in terms of the hardware you get on the phone and the software too, because MIUI is feature loaded and you get MIUI even on 6,000 rupees phone. So yeah, this is a crazy great deal for those who don't mind using MIUI, or for those who know how to flash custom ROMs on the phone. So this is it for my review. Do leave a like and sub with the bell if this video helped you in any way. You can also hop onto a Discord server for more chit chats on relevant topics. Stay safe, humans. That's all for today. MIUBot out with these many features on my OS. Moo.